Hello everyone, welcome to another Lusitano Horse podcast. Now we go internationally, so let me explain you a little bit. I'm in between two very important ladies of the Lusitano horse world, and we are here in the festival, international festival of the Lusitano horse, so it's going to be a little bit different podcast. I hope that you can apologize something that's going less smoothly. But so let me introduce my ladies that I have here with me today. So on my left side, I have Sheri Prucka. She's the president of the Lusitano Horse Association from the United States, USLA, United States Lusitano Association. On my right side, I have Jody Hartstone. She's the president of Australasia. What does this mean? So, she's the president of the Lusitano Horse Association from Australia and New Zealand. So, ladies, thank you very much for being here with us in an international event, giving us the option to have a podcast with you. Thank you very much. So, first, Sheri. After a long period that you have an organization in the United States like IALA, International Andalusian and Lusitano Horse Association, to represent the breed, what led you to create a different organization like the USLA, United States Lusitano Horse Association, leading to a new phase of the Lusitano horse in the United States?
Well, first, Antonio, thank you so much for inviting me here, and Jody as well. It's lovely to be here in this beautiful location with these amazing horses, and we're just delighted to be part of it. So to answer the question, what inspired the creation of USLA or USLA? I have to start with, after I personally learned a little about the Lusitano horse and fell in love right away, and soon purchased several for myself. And I discovered something really quickly, and that was that in order to transfer them and register them in my name with the APSL, I needed to first register them as Andalusians in the United States. And this didn't feel good. And so I did the first two. I did that. But I also began speaking with the people in APSL and asking questions. You know, why should I register my Lusitanos as Andalusians? They're not. And so with the support of a colleague, Nuno Matos, and also Manuel Pain, had the opportunity to meet with the board of APSL and propose that we should have an association purely for the Lusitano horse in the United States, and they agreed. And they also suggested that we take Canada as part of our association so that the Canadian horses would have the same type of organization. And so we got started. It was approved in 2019. We started the association in 2020, and it's been absolutely phenomenal meeting the amazing people and horses behind this breed. It's absolutely an incredible experience.
Thank you very much, Sheri, for your testimony. So, first question for Jody. So, Jody, you came from the Antipodes, from the Australia and New Zealand. How did you get involved with the Lusitano horse and got involved with this Australasian Association of the Lusitano?
Thanks, Antonio. And yeah, just saying the same as Sheri, thanks so much for letting us be part of this. It's so exciting to see these podcasts come available, and to be here in Cascais getting interviewed for one is fantastic too. So for me, I've always ridden warm blood horses. I've always stood stallions at stud. And a friend of mine many years ago said, you should try a Lusitano horse. And I Googled, I'm like, what's a Lusitano horse? and up came a horse in America called Sansao, and my pronunciation is probably not great, but Sansao, and he was being ridden around with Marisa playing her fado music in the background, the song Chuva, and I fell in love with the song and the stallion and whoever the man was riding the stallion, and I thought that's the horse for me. It just seemed so romantic and so beautiful, and that started my journey to come to Portugal to find my next dream horse, which I did. It took me 2 years, but 13 years ago now I bought my first stallion from here and took back to New Zealand and produced him as a Grand Prix dressage horse, and that started my love affair with the Portuguese horse. And then about 5 years ago, I took over as president of the Australasian Association. I have a lot of experience with stud books and with pedigrees. I run the New Zealand Warm Blood Association, so I already am involved with the breeding and producing of passports and things. So for me, I wanted to take it on and modernise the stud book that we had in Australasia. So yeah, it was a natural thing to do, to take it on and get the database up to standard and all of that stuff.
Great job. So next question, and this is going to be really mainly the same for both of you. So, Sheri, what are the main difficulties that you have and you've been struggling when you want to grow the Lusitano horse in your country and in Canada?
Well, first I have to say that none of the problems involve the horse itself.
All these human relations.
The horse is such an incredible horse that it sells itself. And there are challenges when you are trying to expand a breed. And with the Lusitano, there are a couple. One, we have not so many breeders in the United States and Canada. We do have more and more. We have mixed quality in our breeders. There's a big sense of confusion in the United States and Canada about the difference between a Lusitano, a PRE, and an Andalusian. And this sense of confusion has really created some challenges that we work very hard to try to overcome by distinguishing the Lusitano as a horse that is truly a serious horse for various types of work. And this focus has, I think, rung true with a lot of people. And so that's been very helpful. It's becoming more and more popular for dressage. And it's also, of course, used in other ways. In our country, it is used for field work rather commonly, which is an absolutely wonderful application of the Lusitano. And of course, the sport of working equitation is growing as well. But our challenges have more to do with lack of understanding of people. So, for example, we have few trainers who really understand how to train such a sensitive horse that is both wise and sensitive and needs a special type of training. And so trying to get more and more trainers educated so that they can work effectively with Lusitanos is definitely one of our challenges, and is something that we really appreciate all the help we've been receiving from APSL. And from you, and we're very, very grateful for that. But it's really more on the people side, but the horse is becoming so popular in dressage that we have lots of advertising material, and many horses doing very, very well at the Grand Prix level. We see them in the upper levels of dressage, and we're just delighted to see that. So.
Thank you very much, Sheri. And I can imagine that also you have big countries, both of you, big countries comparing to Portugal, and that also can be a problem for you to organize and to be able to get the data and the registration all together. So, Jody, the same question for you. Struggling, difficulties to implement and to grow the Lusitano horse and in Australia and New Zealand?
So one of our issues, I guess we're unique because we're going between two countries. So up until this year, we had both myself as president and the registrar living in New Zealand, but all the banking had to be done in Australia. And then within Australia, it's a bit like the United States. Every state in Australia has its own laws and regulations for running an incorporated society. So it's yeah. So it's, and there's no ferry in between. It's quite a long distance between us. So that's got its own difficulties in terms of running meetings and just the administration of an organisation across two countries. And then also what Sheri said, that so many people still say, oh, you have a Spanish horse. And I'm like, it's not a Spanish horse, and definitely not a Spanish horse. So teaching people the differences between, but what has been amazing actually is the likes of Manuel Vega on Instagram. Like, so many people, I'm like, well, have you seen the guy, that rides backwards on the, doing the one-time changes? Or, oh yeah. I'm like, that's a Lusitano. Or Pedro Torres and Occitano. So people start to know them now from social media. I brought a friend to this show last year, and she knew just about every rider because she's seen them on Instagram and knows their horses. And so that's really cool. I think that's really helping with the popularity of the breed, and also obviously how great the horses are doing in dressage now is making them so much more popular and just much more well known. I guess for me though, it's allowing more riders to experience what a Lusitano is. And Alibaba, the horse I bought in from Portugal originally, gives lots of rides. He must have had 40 or 50 people sit on him now, all experiencing some Spanish walk, the piaffe, the passage, and really, I think he takes his job seriously in showing people a little bit of Portugal in my home in the Antipodes.
Yeah, great job. So next question. So which equestrian activities or areas do you think that were the main responsible for the growth of the Lusitano horse in your country, in the United States and in Canada? And which one do you think that can promote more the Lusitano horse in the near future?
So we spoke to that a little bit in the last segment, but I think that dressage has been the most impactful and will likely continue to be the most impactful, in part because we have so many riders, trainers, and equestrian people, grooms, farriers, everything in that particular industry. So it's a very, very important industry in the United States. Training is very much appreciated. And so a very well-trained dressage horse can bring appropriate money. And so it has proven to be the first discipline that truly represents well the Lusitano. And I think the biggest reason for that is that many, many riders in the United States are stuck at second level and below. And the Lusitano is a horse that can be enjoyed up to higher levels by people that are regular riders. And I think that's just so important. It can give, especially our amateur population, which is very large, especially our amateur female population, is very, very large and want to be able to ride up the levels, aren't necessarily physically strong enough or don't want to have to put together a larger horse like a warm blood, and can sit on a Lusitano with a soft leg, a soft hand, and enjoy everything from flying changes, pirouettes, piaffe, passage, all of these things that are not necessarily available to regular riders, and that has been magical, I think. Going forward, I think other sports can become very, very important. For example, I would like to see, and I'm starting to get wind, that we're likely to see more Western sports permitting Lusitanos.
In reining also?
Yes, yeah. Good. So if we could get Lusitanos involved in these sports, honestly, for me, it's a better horse for the job. At the same time, of course, I'm sure the quarter horse people may not yet feel that way, and I honor that and accept it. But at the same time, it's a great horse for ranch work. It's a great horse for Western sport. And of course, working equitation, which is growing in popularity and interest. And the association in the United States now is part of the World Association of Working Equitation, so we see opportunity for growth there. I'd love to see more interest in driving. Absolutely amazing sport for the Lusitano, but we don't have so many people doing it right now, and I think it could be a meaningful one in the future.
Yes, great answer. So I'd like also to see a Lusitano horse in Western reining. I saw once in Brazil one doing reining, and it was really nice, perfect to see. It was really good. So yes, we have something to do. So Jody, the same question for you. Do you have some specific activities? For example, I think that in Australia you have a lot of cross polo cross or something like that. Would you see a Lusitano doing that or something different?
I've often wondered, we do have a lot of polo cross and polo in both New Zealand and Australia, and that favours a very quick, fast, nimble horse. So we use a lot of small X-race horses, but there's no reason why a Lusitano would not be good at that. And I know we do a lot of field hunting in New Zealand, and whilst I don't take any of my purebred Lusitanos because they're too valuable, the crossbreds are really nice. A Lusitano thoroughbred cross for hunting and general riding is really good as well. But of course, too, for me as a Grand Prix rider, to be on a Lusitano and do all the hard parts of the Grand Prix, now the worst part is the walk, collected walk. It's at least it's not that difficult to do, but it's not the highest scoring. But the Piaffe Passage, to be able to ride a horse through the Grand Prix and you could go straight back in and do it again, like it's just no sweat, not difficult for the horse, and that's truly something to ride Grand Prix on a horse that finds it so easy to do. So, but the same with Sheri, the working equitation in New Zealand and Australia is really growing, and that's also, I think, going to be a big market for the working equitation type of Lusitano.
Yeah, that's it. Good, great. So, Sheri, besides the United States, you also manage Canada, and you have a continent. It's huge, big country. So, how do you think the Lusitano horse has grown in Canada in the past years and the relationship with breeders and the United States? How do you see these matters going on in such a big country, Canada and the States?
Well, the physical size is a challenge, but here I can say the people are not. Absolutely phenomenal relationship between the Americans and the Canadians, a lot of collaboration, more and more growth. We see Canada growing just like the United States, more and more breeders each year, more and more foals each year. Not quite as many as the U.S., but we see a big focus from Canadians on the creation of high-quality Lusitanos. And so we actually love working with them. They're absolutely amazing, and we appreciate what they're doing there. So it's a lot of fun. It's not easy. Imports, we find ourselves importing and exporting things that we didn't really think would be a problem. For example, we have to bring the DNA into the United States and so forth. But it's all good. It's all good and very, very enjoyable. It is two countries. And we are very spread out. And I don't think it would make a bit of difference if there were an ocean. Because virtually all our communication is by video conference. Although I'll take that back because often we actually do cross the border with horses. So it's not so bad.
Yeah, for you, Jody, it's a little bit similar, but you have an ocean in between. So how can you manage this relation in between Australia and New Zealand? Do they get along? They promote each other? They go separate ways? You go together? Can you explain us a little bit the relationship in between?
Well, as long as we're not talking rugby, I think we're arch enemies in sport. But in terms of the Lusitano breeding, no, we're very close. So for me as a New Zealand breeder, Australia is my biggest market. So I'm really breeding for the Australian market. But we have to take into consideration it's about €3,000 to fly a young horse across to Australia. And then they pay tax on the import as well. So, but yeah, there's most of the New Zealand horses end up in Australia, not so much the other way around. But yeah, the relationship's really, really close and is no problem between us all. We're all very friendly.
That's good, great. Like we in the Spanish, we also have like brothers, and we have a really close relation with the Spanish and even with Brazilian friends. So, Sheri, next question. So, it's recognized by the United States and also the Portuguese breeders and even APSL that USLA, United States Lusitano Horse Association, has been developing a fabulous, wonderful job in promoting the Lusitano in the American continent, mainly in the States and Canada. And with you in a central position, of course, you are the first lady to promote this. So, what are your aims for the future of the Lusitano horse in the medium term?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. So it's been a lot of fun getting started. And my background as an engineer is a guiding force as we on the board develop what we're going to do next. And the idea for the USLA conference came from medical conferences. So as opportunity for learning, opportunity for experiencing, and opportunity for social interactions that allow us to get to know each other and work together and build the breed and build the industry. So I think that that's kind of where we came from. We started out by conducting 2 conferences over 3 years. Now we'll take a year off and from the conferences, and our next concept is the development of chapters. Because we're so spread out over our 2 countries, we'd like the opportunity for local groups to be able to form their own groups focused on what interests them. So different areas have asked, we'd like to create a chapter of USLA and we want to focus on training in working equitation. We want to focus on breeding. We want to focus on dressage. So we're working to develop this group of chapters as one of our very next steps. We've held our very first breed competition. That was the one at the last conference in Ocala. And of course, we look forward to doing more of that. But it's so difficult for the horses to all go to one place that we're beginning to seek out opportunities for other locations for breed shows and for the modeling gates type competitions. And so while dressage exists very much all over the US and Canada, except for Hawaii. And we also have working equitation in a variety of places in the US and Canada. We really have a bit of a challenge for model and gates. So we're working on how to make it accessible and available. I think it's extremely important for breeders as they work to improve the quality of the horses that they are creating. And so it fits both in the challenge category and one that we intend to address.
Yes, I can imagine that you are full of ideas, always innovative, like an entrepreneur that you are. So I can imagine that we have a long way to go, but you are not lacking ideas, so it's going to be a good thing. So mainly the same thing to Jody. So what kind of innovations, ideas, how are you going to promote the Lusitano horse in Australasia? Can you tell us something, ideas that the breeders have, the association? You are also really dynamic, eventing, dressage, doing everything. So tell me a little bit.
I guess the biggest thing for us is just to have an inspection tour as often as possible, and that kind of serves as our modelling gates, if you like, assessments of our horses. So we don't quite have the numbers to run any big shows, but we've had now Joao Rao has come a couple of times and is coming again this year in conjunction with his trip to America. So that's really good to tag us on the end, and really just making sure that our mares are getting assessed, our young mares, so that we can keep breeding the Lusitano horse. So whilst we don't have the numbers to have an assessment tour every year, an inspection tour every year, that's our biggest focus, is that every few years we can keep that running so we can keep getting foals put in the book of births. And other than that, just really trying to fly that Portuguese flag high over our side of the world in terms of competitions and promoting at various equitanas and things so that people see really what a Lusitano horse is and can do. So again, the same issues of in the States and Canada. Australia is a really massive area. And New Zealand, as I said, we only have the one breeder now, which is myself. But we really try amongst ourselves to promote the breed as best we can.
Great. And you know that we send already merino sheep to Australia and New Zealand, and also pastures. And now we have Lusitanos. And actually nowadays we import sheep from New Zealand and Australia, and pastures. Maybe some years we are going to import good Lusitanos from there. You never know. You never know the future, so it's going to be good. So, okay, almost nearly the end, but can you tell us a little bit, some question for both of you also. How has it been, this relation between USLA and Australasian and the services of APSL? Did you get enough support? Can you tell? You can criticize at will, so to improve, good critics, positive. How has it has been, this relation between United States and Portugal?
So the relationship is absolutely fantastic. Honestly, it's very, very good. And the opportunities we have to work with the office are generally absolutely amazing. When we have challenges, some more often than not have to do with things that are not in the office. So the main office is very responsive, and with Marta and Ida and Teresa, we are so well cared for. They're so responsive and so amazing. There are times that we need information from Altair that is sometimes delayed. Some things are a little bit slower than would be optimal, and I think that will be addressed. I'm confident. But we'd like to receive papers a little more quickly, physical papers. We'd like to print them ourselves, but I don't know that will ever be an opportunity. But in general, everything could not be better. I mean, these are great people who are focused on the breed, do a fabulous job supporting all of the sister organizations, and we are just very, very grateful for them, as well as for the Secretary General, João Rao. He's very responsive and very, very helpful, and the entire team. And also, the fact that we were able to utilize your expertise to do a webinar for us and other things, we're very, very grateful for that. Your technical expertise is very, very beneficial to us, and so we're super grateful for that.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Now, Jody, you can criticize, not only good things, you can take advantage of this Lusitano podcast to say, please do more this or that.
I just want to say there's been a phenomenal change in the 15 years that I've been involved, from when I bought my first horses here and then my broodmares out of Portugal. The systems now, like in the last 5 years, I think, Sheri, you guys came in at a good time, because I think it has really ramped up and improved and is now getting with the kind of technology and the modern world a little bit. I think it was always a little bit of a joke in the office. Everything was on Portuguese time, but the rest of the world doesn't operate on Portuguese time. So it has been phenomenal, the difference. And now helping with Altair and the DNA issues and things, I think it's going to get much more speedy. And yeah, just it's really going now in a good way. And loving the communications now, these podcasts, what we're seeing on Instagram and Facebook, and really, it's super. And even with the Portuguese School of Equestrian Art, how that's being promoted now from what it was being promoted 10, 15 years ago, it's all going in a good direction. So it's a really exciting time to be involved.
Thank you very much. So almost finishing, only one last question or message. Do you have some kind of take-home message that you could leave for the breeders, for your case in the American, or for the organizations that you can leave here for everyone to listen? Take a home message.
I would say to the breeders, to the riders, to the trainers, you found the right horse. Now let's work together and bring more and more of them up the levels in our countries. Let's work together. And I think we are where the warm bloods were 30 years ago. And this horse has a huge future, I believe, in the world. So I hope that many, many people will come to enjoy it the way we have.
Thank you very much, Sheri. Now, Jody, your take-home message, please.
Again, like being able to, I've brought 10 New Zealanders here this week for the Lusitano Festival. So to be able to show people in the flesh, what the Lusitano horse is and what it means to the Portuguese people, I think is a really big thing. So like Sheri said, don't just sell us your horses, but sell us that dream and the Portuguese spirit and everything it means to have a Lusitano horse, and support us in our journeys by sending trainers around the world and, doing more of that kind of thing. I think will really help the breeders sell more horses abroad, because it's more than just a horse when you buy a Lusitano. You're buying hundreds and hundreds of years of history and Portuguese tradition and all the rest of it. So the biggest thing too, the more horses we can get pyro free, the better, because we're really stuck. Trying to buy horses out of Portugal is difficult for us. So any help we can have with that is really important too. But yeah, just keep producing beautiful horses and let us keep dreaming of our next life being born in Portugal.
So, ladies, thank you very much for this great interview. You are always welcome with us. Thank you for your support to the breed in one spot and to the opposite spot. So please keep this enthusiasm and keep on promoting the Lusitano horse worldwide. And see you next time. And thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of the festival.
Thank you.